Hello, my name is Annette Anderson, and I am the Academic Programming Director for the Center for Safe and Healthy Schools. Today, I am pleased to welcome Dr. Eric Rice, who is the faculty lead for our Urban Teachers Program, which is an alternative certification program in the School of Education. Welcome, Dr. Rice.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm very happy that you're here. We're talking lately about the effect of the coronavirus on schools, because that is a conversation that continues to take a lot of precedence for families and for schools and for districts. So we want to talk about a unique area that we tend to see a lot as a school of education, and that is in teacher preparation.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about why, amidst thinking about school closures and thinking about the impact of the coronavirus for communities, this area of teacher preparation might be another, little thought of concern for people who are currently in teacher preparation programs?
Sure. Well, I think there's a number of factors, right? So in our Urban Teachers Program, students are already very busy, right?
Yes.
So they are spending, in their first year in the program, they're spending time as a resident in someone else's classroom during the day, and then they're taking coursework at night. The second year of the program, they are a teacher of record teaching all day and still taking a half-time course load. So they've already got a fair amount of pressure on them. And then you just add this on top in terms of the multiple levels. So on the one hand, they're worried about themselves and their families. On the other hand, they're worried about their students. On the third hand, if I might say, they're probably worried about what might be happening in the schools, right? They don't know whether their schools might close at any point. They don't know whether we might stop holding courses or move courses online. So there's just a lot of uncertainty that I think is probably weighing on people right now.
And what are some of the ways in which the Urban Teachers Program is trying to help buffer some of this for your candidates? Because you serve almost 500 students in your program, so it's a significant number of candidates. What are some of the ways that you and your team have been working to try to mitigate some of these effects?
Well, right now, until the university makes any kind of other decision, right now we're going along as normal. And so we are trying to encourage faculty not to cancel courses or things like that. That policy could change at any time. And as I'm sure you know, things are moving very quickly. But first of all, we don't want people to panic.
Right.
Second of all, we are stressing that we do have the good fortune of being located here at Johns Hopkins. And so many of the researchers who are being consulted by CDC are located at the School of Public Health.
Yeah.
So I think that I've encouraged people to be aware of that and just to think about the fact that the university administration has really good information that they're making their decisions based upon. So I think those are two ways that we've tried to get the message out. And then finally, just having open communication. My communication has mostly been with our sites and with other faculty, but encouraging them to keep lines of communication open with students.
So your program currently places candidates in the classrooms so that they can get practice immediately to become effective teachers.
Exactly.
If those schools are closed where they are currently placed, is there going to be an impact, do you think, on their training or their preparation?
I'm sure people are nervous about that. So there are regulatory issues at play, and what I have heard is that MSDE is looking at having some leniency around the exact number of days that students might have, that student teachers might have to have in the classroom. For our program, because it is a full-year residency, I don't expect that there will actually be any issues. But I imagine that in all kinds of preparation programs, whether that's in teacher preparation or counseling internships or perhaps even administrative internships, that people would be thinking about, if the school closes and I don't get my days in, what does that mean if I'm scheduled to graduate in May? If my class is canceled, is there the capacity to move everything online so that I can graduate, and stay on schedule for whatever my graduation date might be?
And are there plans to think about how to help teachers transition out of a program like Urban Teachers and into a full-time role if some of the climate and culture pieces, which are really some of the bedrock pieces of your program, are not able to be completely instituted because schools are closed and you don't have a place to really develop your pedagogy?
So we have kind of a unique structure in that because we have courses running in Baltimore, DC, and Dallas, we have faculty at all three cities. And those faculty meet regularly already to talk about what's happening in their coursework. And they meet with our urban teacher support staff as well. And so that we have a structure in place. And what I've asked people to do is to begin talking about how do we move the content online if we need to? If schools close, because we do hold the actual coursework is held in our partner schools. So if whatever Hopkins decides, if those schools close, we would have to go online. So we wanted to get out ahead of that and begin thinking about, sometimes it's easy, right? You've got a PowerPoint and you can give it in front of the room and you can have your talk, or you can do a recording of that. Fortunately, we all now have video cameras on our phones or our laptops or whatever we need. But sometimes it's more complicated. So what we really want to be thinking about is when the assignment is actually clinically based. And if the assignment requires you to be in front of kids, how are we going to think about moving that online? And so I don't know that we have the answers yet, but we're trying to get out ahead of that by having faculty talk about what some alternatives might be.
Are you hearing that the candidates are stressed or concerned about the way this is going and playing out in our schools?
I haven't heard that much yet, so I know that some other faculty have heard from students. Just because of my position with the program, I've heard more from faculty who are wondering, under what conditions should we come in or not come in? What is our autonomy? What is the Hopkins policy on that? So I've been really just asking them to bookmark and check the main Johns Hopkins page.
And how responsive do you think you'll be? Because this is changing day by day, hour by hour, as we see. How responsive have you been able to be, do you think, to your team to be able to plan for this moving forward?
Well, we're having daily conversations, so I'm being as responsive as I can be. But as you point out, I may say something, and an hour later hear that what I said is out of date. So I think we're all dealing with that situation right now.
And so, what advice would you give for candidates who are in the program, who are trying to figure this out? Obviously, if you're earlier in the program rather than almost completing the program, your stresses are different, your concerns are different. What kind of advice would you give to people who are currently matriculated in the program?
Well, I think the main advice is to stay in touch. As I tell them all the time at orientation, check your JHU email. And I would go back to that point I made earlier, that we do have experts in these kinds of situations here at Johns Hopkins. They're advising the president on the decision and the provost on the decisions that the university is going to make. And imagine if this had happened 15 years ago, before we had the experience that we have with online education. If we do need to move things online, I think that we're in better shape than many places to do that. And so in the meantime, I would say, don't panic. Keep doing what you need to do to get the education that you came here for, and we're doing everything we can and working hard behind the scenes so that if we need to make a transition, we're prepared to do that.
And for programs that may not be completely online or have the flexibility that we have here in the School of Education at Johns Hopkins, what do you think the potential impact for teacher preparation will be if schools are closed? I mean, just thinking about the field.
No, I think that's a great question. As I said, I think MSD has been having conversations about what kind of flexibility they might have about required number of days or hours of student teaching, that kind of thing. So one, I guess it's just important that they are having those conversations now, and that's good. But I think there is reason for concern. On the one hand, those regulations are in place for a reason. We do want our candidates to be out there practicing in real schools with real kids. Furthermore, I think a way of turning that question around is what impact is it going to have on the kids in schools if schools
I was going there next.
If schools are closed down, if that were to happen, so we think about the impact it has on pre-service teachers. That has an impact on the kids as well,
Sure
and they, as well as I do how much principals have tried to change things around to make sure that we have more instructional time, and that's a big loss of instructional time. And I would assume that that's something MSD might also have to look at: is what happens if if we don't meet the required number of school days for the year. This could be the equivalent of a major snowstorm or even worse.
This is worse than a snowstorm, right? Because some places will be closed for weeks, if not months.
And it's not just the instruction, too. I mean, here in Baltimore City, many kids are dependent upon the schools for more than just instruction, but for, sometimes for some of their meals and things. And so I hope that people at the school system are having conversations at the city about how to do that. I would assume they are.
Yeah, everyone's having those conversations. I think I do worry for people who are nascent classroom teachers, because it has a particularly chilling effect when you're in a place where you're developing your craft, as you're developing your pedagogy. You need the continuity of the day-to-day to be able to hone some of those skills, and the support of a master teacher to be able to support you as you're doing that.
Well, and that is another question. Even if everything goes along smoothly and nothing's closed, I do wonder whether this isn't going to have an impact on even just teacher absenteeism, right? So if you're a resident in our urban teachers program, but your host teacher's not in that day, that influences your experience of the program.
It does.
So I think wherever we go from now, there's bound to be some serious impacts. I think in terms of delivering the content, we can probably do that. But getting that practice and the clinical experience is where this is going to be trickiest.
And because for your program in particular, the populations of children that we serve are the most important children, right? Our most at-risk students who deserve to have, very highly competent teachers. But if this gets disrupted, I do worry, and maybe you don't, but I do worry a little bit about the ability of them to be able to recoup quickly and to go into the classroom and be prepared and ready.
Yeah, I don't want to say I don't worry. I share that concern, but what I would say is that I think that this one of the advantages of this program is that you do have that full year residency, as well as time in the summer before that and in the summer after. And that's so if they've had a lot of practice, and if they lose some, I think the program's still strong. And who knows what the timeline of this will look like, but if it is, short to medium term, we also have the potential, but we could look at whether we could add some additional experience in the summer before they go into their own classroom. We'll see. If we start going beyond this summer, then I think we're in a whole different conversation.
Yes. Do you think that this experience will change teacher preparation writ large, given that it is going to have a dramatic impact on how the rest of this academic year finishes?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Teacher preparation has changed so much in the last decade or two already. One thing that did occur to me earlier today as I was reading about one more college that had closed or moved things online or extended spring break or all the decisions, they've been happening quickly today.
Very quickly.
There has been a move towards more online programs in general, and if this forces everybody to go online, even with their face-to-face programs, I wonder what that means for whether that people say, well, this is working well, why not stick with it, or if people will decide actually, you can imagine that going the other way as well. Do people say like, wow, we really missed having the time in the classroom and face-to-face, and you could imagine kind of almost backlash isn't quite the right word, but an opposite response, and just a reaction to say like, no, we want more face-to-face time, we want more time in classrooms.
Sure. Well, Dr. Rice, I thank you for your expertise in this area. I thank you for sharing. It's been wonderful to have this dialogue, and I look forward to thinking about how maybe this is going to change teacher preparation. Because one of the things I think about is whether it means that we need to start training our teachers online to teach virtually. And that's a conversation that I think, that for me, out of all of this, I wonder, we don't spend as much time teaching our teachers how to teach virtually well. And I wonder whether this will change that.
That's true. That's a good point. As to what extent do we want to incorporate? Because this happens to be a virus, but we talked about big snowstorms earlier, and there are the natural disasters that we've experienced recently. It would be interesting to see what are the implications for incorporating that into all teacher prep programs. My only concern there is the digital divide, and do all of our families have access to that? If that, I wouldn't want to rely only upon that without a lot of other things in place.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Rice, for joining us today. And thank you, our viewer, for joining us. I am Annette Anderson for the Center for Safe and Healthy Schools, and I thank you for your time and for your effort in hearing more about this topic of the coronavirus in schools. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.